The song goes like this.
Hey, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. Welcome to Trial and Error, where I play the first part of a game or a game demo, usually do that pretty badly, and give you my thoughts along the way. This time, I'm looking at the long-awaited by me, Dragon Quest Builders 2. I really enjoyed the first game in this series, but it was kind of in fits and starts, for a while. It wasn't until maybe two-thirds of the way through the main campaign of that game that I finally locked into what I was enjoying about it, and it just kept me coming back more and more until I was able to finish it out and then do all the extra post-game stuff that they made available. And there were not many things about that game that I would want them to improve on, but I really have enjoyed seeing the previews for Dragon Quest Builders 2 because it looks like they are going to be doing some things that I'll really enjoy, increasing the building size and allowing you to travel around in water and some other things I'm looking forward to. I'm not really a fan at all of Minecraft, but I like some of the concepts that are in that, and the idea of having some light survival elements, and so having a nicer graphical look to that kind of game was really appealing to me, and especially since I'm not a huge hardcore fan of the Dragon Quest, main series. I definitely have enjoyed a number of them, and it's part of my history, and so I don't want to say nostalgia, but just putting an aesthetic skin of Dragon Quest on top of a, block building style of game, definitely has some appeal for me. I did miss being able to properly cast magic spells in the first one, although there were certainly equivalents in the items that I could craft. I was hesitant to discover that there wasn't an XP system in the first game, but I discovered that kind of like a board game like Hero Quest, you can upgrade your character and quote-unquote level them up, as it were, more by the equipment that you improve and craft. So there's still that sense of a grind that you can do to get yourself out of trouble if the game becomes too difficult. But the game wasn't really difficult for me, even though I tend to be terrible at action games of all kinds. There was some light theming in the first game about you as the main character not being the hero. You had people affirming, or like a goddess voice in your head affirming, you are not the hero, you are not the hero. And then, I don't know, I can't remember, at the end of that game, it seemed like they were going somewhere, gonna say something about that thematically, but it just kind of didn't really pay off in the way I was expecting, really in any striking way at all for me. And so, I don't look to the Dragon Quest franchise for interesting theming and philosophical issues being explored, but I am curious if they're going to do anything like that in the follow-up. More than anything else, I think I'm just going to hopefully enjoy the exploration, the looting, as it were, even though I'm basically just picking up and, mining items and elements from the world to craft into things. I think I just really like that looting and character building and becoming more powerful as you explore and craft and build up your guy. That is like the essence of what I come to a lot of games for. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Dragon Quest Builders 2 modifies the formula of the first one, and hopefully that'll all be in positive ways. We'll see. Venture forth, my children, and destroy all before you. Thus decreed the great and glorious High Priest Hargon, and lo, his minions of mayhem did march out rank upon rank to ravage the land and strike fear into human hearts. Our unholy father then gave up his mortal form so that Malroth, the master of destruction, might be reborn and the world be consumed by catastrophe. Alas, mighty Malroth was defeated at the hands of the despicable spawn of Erdrick before Hargon's glorious vision could be brought to life. Oh, hellish father, hear our prayer. This is some dark stuff. You're no hero, I know that much. You're one of them builders, right? Okay, so it looks like this takes place after the events of Dragon Quest 2, which I actually have on my iPhone, and I'm maybe a few hours into it, but not even near finishing it. But there's a nice intro that gets you up to speed. It's not a complicated plot. So basically, it's like all the minions of the big bad who got killed at the end of Dragon Quest II are trying to carry on without him. So basically, you start out as a captured slave builder of the villains, and you're on their boat going to a place where ultimately you're probably gonna be killed by them, but in the meantime, they are making you serve as a slave around the boat, and giving you tutorial missions. So, yeah, it's a more fleshed out kind of tutorial than the first game. More interesting, I suppose, with more story elements, but frankly, I don't really play games for story. I just want to, like, get the tutorial out of the way as fast as possible and get to the open world. But I think it's probably really good for first-time players. Oof. So he was asked to smash a statue of his goddess and killed when he wouldn't obey. Man, that kind of religious persecution is a little bit more dark than I would expect from the world of Dragon Quest. This is normally not my aesthetic at all. I really dislike smiley anime. I really am more interested in serious, gritty type stuff. Not this very kitty, cartoony kind of vibe, but for some reason, Dragon Quest is the exception to the rule that I just accept, as long as I can turn voice acting off. Yeah, already getting those good mining, collecting vibes. So I thought Malroth was the name of the big bad that was destroyed, and now this guy shows up named Malroth, who's like my friend, who also got shipwrecked here, but doesn't seem to remember his past. Is he like the Malroth? He doesn't look like the big bad of a video game. Well, one thing it looks like they haven't changed is that you still have to go and talk to the quest giver to get a refresher on what you need to do to finish the quest. I would have appreciated a quest log that you could open up and look at no matter where you were at in the world. Okay, I think I'm seeing where this is going. Malroth was like this big lord of destruction, and he thinks it's such a novelty that I'm a builder, so it's like I'm the antithesis of what he was all about in his villainous days. So we're probably looking at an arc where he's going to gain his memory back, and he'll see that, oh, it's better to build than it is to destroy, right? Yeah, look at this. This is, if you need a helping hand smashing stuff to get materials, then I'm your man. I destroy pretty much everything I touch. It seems like you can save at any time instead of having like a save point flag that you had to go to in the first game, and that is super cool. I just got a recipe for a wooden cudgel that I can only give to Malroth. I can't use it myself. I'm not sure how I feel about this constantly having an AI companion. I hope at some point I get the option to kind of leave him behind. I'm not really interested in having him around. Yeah, I'm kind of getting tired of the... Huh? I mean, it's better than having to put up with the voice acting, but I don't have an option to just turn down those vocal noises, which is one of my least favorite things about anime-inspired voice acting, is the strange vocal noises. There was some of it in the first game, and I got used to it. I'll probably get used to it in this one, too. Minor gripe. Oh. So we just gained a level from fighting monsters or something. Well, it does seem that there's probably some kind of experience system, but currently it's hidden from me. Yeah, there's more story, I feel like, this time. More NPCs with personalities and stuff, and I kind of liked in the first game where people didn't have personalities, they just had tasks for you to do. They're like, I could really use this, could you go make this for me? Because I just want the gameplay. I don't play games for story. I usually am uninterested in the stories of games, or find them even a little grating, as is the case with games based on happy anime aesthetics. I realize that I said that Dragon Quest is usually the exception, but that's more on the visual side of things. I still usually try to fire through the story as fast as I can and just get to the combat or whatever the gameplay is. So I'm hoping I'm still just kind of in a early stage, and eventually I will be set free with just a bunch of tasks. What is that? Why are you going so slow? There's some weird, like... I mean, there's a tiny bit of frame rate stuttering going on the... I'm playing on a regular PS4. But now and then, I don't know if it's related to my companions following me. I thought maybe sometimes it was just when I was in the water, but it seems at random times there's little bits of, like... I don't know, slowdown or something for my characters. It's weird and annoying. Look around you, Pater. This temple has lain in this sorry state for longer than I can recall. If you are the builder I believe you to be, then perhaps you can fix it. Temple to who? Before I fix it up. The control scheme has changed a little bit. Like, I still use triangle for my weapon attack, but for mining I use R2, which is very similar to Minecraft, and combining that with the first-person optional mode clearly seems more designed this time to appeal to fans of Minecraft. Yeah, there's definitely a lot more talking from NPCs this time around, and I'm just not into it. Okay, so it looks like as the game progresses, you have your home island that you crash landed on that is yours, and you're going to be building it and developing it or something over time, which is probably kind of like the Terra Incognita realm that you unlocked as you played through the first game. And then you're going to get access to multiple islands that you go to, but you have to start from scratch there. They strip you of all your materials, and you have to start over there. So it has a similar skeleton, it looks like, to the first game. It's just it's just different theming surrounding the skeleton. There's only one who can save this world from oblivion. Malroth, the Lord of Destruction. He's the only one who can save this world from oblivion? So it looks like they're definitely wanting to put him on a redemption path type of story. It kind of, in a weird way, makes me want to get up my iPhone and finish playing through Dragon Quest II. Alright, this is more of what I want to see. A big open world. I just don't want this companion following me around. Your weapons and tools also don't have durability, which was a main element of the first game, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think in most RPGs I would say I don't like weapon durability, but in this game, or at least in the first one, it added an element of choice and strategy to figure out, okay, what do I really want to mine right now? Because for everything that I mine, I'm gonna lose some durability in my weapon. Or my tool. Oh boy. Malroth, where'd you go? Get your butt over here. Come on, if you're gonna be a annoying companion, then you gotta at least get in here and rumble! Okay, cool. There's the experience bar. And it did grow from just killing a grunt. Nice. Okay, great. So there's this leftover religion of some kind that was supporting the big bad of Dragon Quest II. And building is like a massive sin. And now there's like a pastor that just showed up. We're in an old heap of trouble, and a whole heap of trouble here. The pastor's on his way over. He must have seen the light from the tree. What in the name of Hargon is happening here? I think Hargon was the big bad or something. Or was Malroth the big bad? Okay, Dragon Quest Wiki to the rescue, since I haven't played Dragon Quest II. Hargon is the primary antagonist of Dragon Quest II. He is a corrupt cleric that plans to summon Malroth, a god of destruction. And Malroth is the final boss of Dragon Quest II, but he's not the main enemy. Hargon, this evil cleric, is. But I don't know who this guy is, if this is Hargon or what. What? Building a farm, you say? Heresy! How dare you sully my island with the sinful stain of creation! You will pay dearly for this! It's really interesting, you know, given how light and fluffy the aesthetic is, that they're dealing with these themes of religious persecution. And you know, Dragon Quest II, I mean, that would have been made in sometime in the 80s, and they had an evil cleric, an evil religious figure as the main antagonist. I think it just goes to show that it's still something that resonates with people, the idea of having religious authorities that are evil or oppressive in some way. It does get tiresome to me, but then again, I've never been part of any kind of Christian tradition that has had strong authority figures, and certainly not strong authority figures that have, abused their power and oppressed people. But there are still sectors of Christianity, both the larger, we would call them, I suppose, denominations, and smaller, independent, kind of backwoods churches that authority is abused, and anywhere in between. I mean, you can find a church where authority is being abused. But I wonder how much that device in stories is leaned on because it's just cemented itself as part of the fantasy genre, or because it's like a straw man that people just like to keep, pummeling in fiction, or what. But I really have to stretch to remember the last time I saw an organized monotheistic religion portrayed favorably and have the most virtuous characters in the story, compared to them being the hypocrites or the villains. Let's see, if I am not mistaken, this is a young Deitri. Is that a play on the word deity? Deity? Deitri? The sacred sentinel of the furrow-field forests, beneath whose blessed boughs this isle once flourished. I've heard of this so-called Deitri. It was a mighty magical tree that protected all life on Furrowfield, or so they say. So the antithesis of the evil monotheistic religion is kind of a nature-worshipping religion. If I remember correctly, the goddess in Dragon Quest Builders 1 was the spirit of the earth. It's also interesting to note that the antithesis of evil monotheism here is nature worship, but nature that requires our help, requires us to make it grow and build. So it's a very kind of a humanist, almost, kind of religion. Please say that you'll help us grow the Deitri and bring Furrowfield Farm back to life? No. But I can't do it on my own. We'll only succeed if we work together. Please, 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 won't you help? No. But, okay. This is a hallmark of the Dragon Quest games, the very faint illusion of choice. You get yes or no options now and then in dialogue. I think the answer is always yes. And whatever the wrong answer is, if you choose it, you're just cycled back and until you choose the right answer. It's interesting with such a formalized religion that one of the authority figures is called a pastor. That is interesting. Usually they're called priests or clerics or something like that. So that is an interesting modification of the cliche. Malroth says, "Why do you lot believe all this children of Hargon rubbish anyway? Look at your pastor. He's dressed like someone's grandmother." To tell you the truth, I've never given it much thought before. I've been a believer since as long as I can remember. That's just the way it's always been. That's interesting. I just wonder if there's any kind of commentary being made here. I think there's an empty form of criticism from non-theists that would say, well, there's no good reasons to believe that Christianity is true, and people just believe it because they were raised in it. That said, I think that Christians should consider the reasons that they do have to believe. I think we should be in the habit of questioning our beliefs, reevaluating our beliefs. If we've never done that, if we've never in the course of our faith life modified any of our beliefs, to me, I think that's a real red flag. Oh my gosh, please stop making those noises. Who dares speak ill of the children of Hargon? What foul sinner defies my divine authority? Show yourself or face the full wrath of my righteous fury. Yeah, I mean, if that's not the stereotypical power-mad religious authority figure, I don't know what is. Yeah, I'm getting close to 3 hours into the game at this point, and I feel like I'm only just now starting to be given a little bit of freedom, a little bit of choice. I'm actually doing a little bit of building. Up to this point, it's felt very tutorialized, very much like, okay, do this, okay, now do this, okay, now do this, and a lot of pressing X to cycle through NPC dialogue, which is a bummer. I felt like I was... Maybe it's because I'm so familiar with the first game that this feels more boring and less engaging to me, but I feel like with the first game I felt engaged in building and crafting much earlier. All that to say, for fans of the first game, this one might be a bit of a slow start. I think what I want from a game like this is not complete directionless freedom like you would have in, say, Minecraft, where there's no real story that's propelling you forward, or it's not that I need a story, but there's no even like missions or tasks or quests. I want the structure, the skeletal structure of quests and tasks, but I just don't want more story at all than is absolutely necessary to propel me along those quests in a game of this type, which is about exploring and crafting and stuff, and I felt like I've done very little exploring and surprisingly little crafting, at least not crafting by my own choice. Okay, now it's opening up. They say once you've sown your seeds, it'll be some time before they grow. In the meantime, why not make your farm a little bit prettier? And so I like objectives from the first game where you had to build up the point value of your town, which was measured dependent on the types of buildings and things you crafted in the town. And once it reached a certain level, then the plot would advance. But you could choose how you were going to experiment with building different rooms and stuff like that, and discover different types of room bonuses by throwing different objects in the room, you know, because a standard room becomes a little farmer's room if you put a stack of logs and some farming equipment in there, you know. And so by experimenting in that first game, you could discover new rooms that give you bonus points, new types of rooms that give you bonus points. So there's a sense of experimentation and creative choice making that can potentially benefit you. I mean, I guess I just want a little bit more freedom, and I think now, just close to 3 hours in, I'm finally getting the freedom that I really enjoyed in the first game. Oh man, those guys respawn fast. Oh! And they are following me. Stone sword, baby. Okay, so dangerous monsters still come out at night. I need to go sleep lickety fast. Dude, I do not see a way to drop items. So that means, what, I need to always carry a chest with me in case I'm out exploring and my inventory slots get filled up? They cannot have gotten rid of the ability to drop items, can they? Okay, so you have to go into your inventory and then select an item, and then you get a list of options, one of which is discard. Alright, I'm tracking with you. Oh, that's stuttering. What the crap? There's weird stuttering in the walking. And I think it's because of Malroth following me around. Let me go, Larva! Look at that. What the crap? I super hope that there's a patch for that. It's been out in Japan for, like, what, half a year or more? Which says to me, if it could have been patched by now, it would have been patched by now. So it's probably just going to be something I gotta live with in the game. That's super lame. Ow! Oh! Oh man, I jumped right into that. Wow, I'm so hyped right now. Well, kudos to these guys on their localization. Oh, nice. Okay. So I got a bag that lets me collect as many materials as I want. Never have to worry about leaving anything behind again. I don't know why they didn't just give that to me, like, right from the start. Dang, the enemies strike me as being, like, more aggressive in like, when they will start chasing you. Like, even from fairly far away, they zero in on me, and... I mean, compared to Dragon Quest Builders, anyway. Ow! One thing that the story does capture that's kind of nice is just the joy that the main character has in building. You know, other characters remark several times, man, you just really seem to love building and love doing this stuff. And I think that characteristic, and building and crafting mechanics in games in general, capture what work is ultimately meant to be, and I believe will be, again, in Christ's eternal kingdom, when the nastiness, the curse, is taken out of work, and it's just fulfilling and not frustrating or exhausting. So it looks like when you level up, Malroth gets stronger and your HP increases. So defense and offensive power are still probably tied to crafting, which I think is good. Oh, okay, and I also learned to build up for like a super strong attack on this level up. I kind of resent that some of these new recipes I learned can only be used by Malroth. Yeah, even as it has opened up a bit, I still feel like I'm in a tutorial zone in terms of game design. I mean, I'm pretty free to go where I want, but I still have characters informing me of some foundational mechanics that I learned about in Dragon Quest Builders 1, so... What in the world? Oh, more monsters, man! I also feel like the monsters respawn a lot more quickly than in the last game. They've also got a built-in ability to warp back to my town, and also some of these teleport globes that I can find throughout the world, which I'm used to needing a Chimera Wing to do that in both the Dragon Quest games and in Dragon Quest Builders 1. So I'm not sure, they're giving me some things for free this time around. Free inventory, weapons that don't break down, free teleportation, which arguably are like conveniences, I guess, but I don't know. When you've got survival elements lightly built into a game like this, I don't know. I'm just gonna have to see how it feels in the long term to not have to worry about some of those survival style elements that were in the first game. Oh, crap. It is a bit of a pain. I'm trying to build this barn as a quest for somebody, and it has multiple components, and I can't find the dude. I need a refresher on what all is needed, because there's no quest log that I can pull up to just remind me what I need to build and put in this room. Now, I know I'm complaining a lot. The truth is that it has... I mean, it's more Dragon Quest Builders, and that's totally what I want. It has the same sound effects, the same visuals, the same music exactly, I think. It's just more of that, and assuming it's going to open up some more after we get done with this tutorial stage, then I think I'm really going to enjoy it. I think I'm probably gonna have to reach a point where it opens up enough for me to kind of hit a groove that is open-ended, that allows me to be a little more creative while also progressing the story. Oh, dude, that's cool. I can make a wooden grating so that I can have, like, almost like a sewer system. I can have water flowing underneath where people walk. That's cool. Something I like about these games that Minecraft doesn't have is that when you can sync, it doesn't always work out, but when you can sync up being creative with being rewarded by the game for it, that is really cool. You know, creating a room or a house or something like that and building it a certain way so that it fits my interests, but I'm also earning points from doing it and progressing the game. Minecraft doesn't offer that. Minecraft offers a lot more limitless creativity options than these games do, but I like having progression tied to my creative choices as well. Minecraft, I feel like a lot of times is about also sharing your creations with other people, and I never really got into that with the first game. I doubt I'll get into it with this game, even though they've added options that help you share things even more. For me, it's enough if they can get me in that sweet spot of reward for my creative crafting and building. Okay, well, I usually, for these trial and error videos, record myself playing 5 hours, edit down the footage, and then base my thoughts off of that. But for one reason or another, I decided to record myself for about 5 hours and then keep playing over the weekend because I was enjoying the game. I ended up putting more than 5 hours more into the game, so probably total at this point, I have played about 10 to 12 hours of Dragon Quest Builders 2. These should still be considered ultimately first impression thoughts, of course, but wanted to at least give you that context. I've completed the first chapter with the first big boss battle, and I feel like I have a sense of most of what this game is basically going to be. I am happy with it, but it's taken a small step backward from the first game for the things that I enjoyed about the first game anyway. There are, as I mentioned, I think earlier, there are no point values visible for rooms and buildings, and that's a bummer to me because I like, being given a mission and yet having the flexibility to carry out the mission the way I want. And the building point structure of the first game allowed you to kind of like progress the advancement of your town and your levels the way that you wanted to, both creatively and tactically as you're figuring out, okay, well, if I make this, it'll give me this many points. If I make this, it'll give me this many points. I liked having those elements in the game, and they're absent. Maybe they're still happening under the hood, but not being able to see them takes that element of tactics and creativity, kind of away from me. And there's generally a lot more direction, I felt like, in how I should build, what I should build in order to accomplish the goals that advance the story in this game. The best moments for me were when villagers would request that a room be built, and I would have limited space in my town, and I have to think about, okay, well, what should I do? Should I go multi-level and stack this building on top of that building, or can I squeeze it in over here? So there was that kind of little bit of strategy, and then also creativity, like, well, if I shape the room this way, then I can make it work, So I just felt like there wasn't as much call for that, but when it did happen, those were the best moments for me in this game. There's still no quest log, never did find one, but what I did discover is that items in the inventory are now marked when a blueprint has been set down, and that's nice. So that once you've set a blueprint down and you go over to your workbench, you'll see things highlighted that are relevant to what you need to craft in order to complete that blueprint. That's really cool. But I do recommend having scratch paper handy because it doesn't quite take it far enough, and the only way to remind yourself what elements are needed to construct a requested room is to ask the NPC who requested it to tell you again, which involves tracking them down wherever they're at in the town, and then reading their whole text dialogue again too, instead of them just saying bing bang boom boom, this is what I need, now you got to listen to their whole story again, So it's better to just jot it down the first time they say it, the yellow highlighted words are the things that you need to build, and anyway, there's a heavy focus on farming in this first opening chapter, and I'm glad to have discovered elsewhere that this changes with subsequent chapters. It's just a main focus of the first chapter. I don't know if the following chapters are going to have a similar focus, like now we're going to focus on railroads or elevators or something like that. I don't know. Either way, I might have preferred more variety in all the chapters. Certainly in this first chapter, instead of just inundating me with all the new farming mechanics and making the first chapter be a lot about farming. I'm interested in so many other things that building things and gadget building and stuff like that, types of rooms and stuff. And I felt like it had a heavy farming focus. I did enjoy that new mechanic and all of the stuff that came with it, but it just would have been nice to have had a little bit more variety in what I was building and doing. There was, speaking of variety, in the plus column, there was this great bathroom creation kind of mission where you have to create this little bathroom that has a pot in it. Like the same pot you would put in another room decoratively, and then if you put a towel rack in there, that counts, I guess, as toilet paper. That makes a bathroom. And then I kid you not, these little cute Dragon Quest people will go and just poop their guts out. They get in a big line after you feed them all that cabbage. They have to get it all out of their system, and then the icing on top of this weird stinky cake is that the poop, it goes by a different name, night something. I can't remember what it's called, but it's poop. Is a material that accumulates in the pot. You go and collect it, and you use it for crafting, like for fertilizer and stuff. Oh my gosh, it was enough for me to just see my cute little people sitting on the pot and doing their business. But for it to yield a crafting component was just, that was great. That was great. I'm a simple creature, so maybe your mileage will vary on what a novelty that is. The combat is still very simple, and I like it that way. The chapter boss battle that I encountered, like the first game, was not simply just hacking and slashing like combat usually is. It's about running around and placing things. In other boss battles in the last game, you had to build things really quick on the fly, and so I imagine that's kind of how boss battles are going to be going forward in this game as well. I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not really interested in the combat. That's not why I come to these games. I like just a little bit of button mashing so I can feel like I'm taking out little monsters and stuff, but I don't need this complicated, in-depth thing that's stressing me out. I gotta build, okay, I gotta deconstruct, okay, I gotta run over here. It's a little too much for me, but anyway. There are puzzles, again, that are optional in this game, and there are these little mystery locations you go to, and if you solve the puzzle, then you unlock a mini medal, which in turn you can take to somebody that will exchange them for unique special crafting recipes. These don't seem mandatory at all, but I hate that any recipes in the game are blocked, walled behind puzzles or special achievements that you have to do. They did something similar in the first game. I didn't like it there either. I'm just like, just give me all the crafting recipes. Just let me play, you know. Let me make and build and, you know, see all that you have to offer me in these systems. So, and that's especially frustrating when, you know, to get these mini medals, you have to do some puzzles where, for me, the logic behind the puzzles is obscure, such as how water behaves. There was a puzzle I ran into where it's, you know, it's all about directing water from one place to another, and that water was not doing what logically I felt it should have been doing. And so I was like, well, I don't know what you guys want me to do here. This seems like it should totally be, you know, working, but I guess your water is just fictional Dragon Quest water. So that didn't work very well. Thankfully, there are some helpful walkthroughs, of course, that you can find online, and you can revisit islands later if you don't feel like doing all the puzzles right away. So I imagine, you know, when I am toward the end of the game and I really want to, you know, unlock some recipes, first I'll look up and see if they're worth unlocking, and then, you know, I'll use walkthroughs to finish those puzzles. When this game hits with me, it really does hit. It hits right on the nose. You know, I still love that satisfaction of exploring and crafting and building and the light survival elements, and when I'm given creative freedom as I'm, you know, doing things, building things to advance the campaign, then I'm in a gaming sweet spot and really, really enjoying my time with this game. But it does miss with me sometimes too, and I think, maybe I'm not remembering this right, but I think it misses with me more often than the first game did certainly I think by giving too much direction and NPC dialogue to scroll through. I really do think that's increased on both counts since the last game. I don't care about stories in games, and even more so, I think with this being just kind of a cute, silly type thing. You know, Dragon Quest, that world is the exception to me in terms of, you know, when I'm willing to enjoy a bright, happy, silly, cartoony type of aesthetic, but I'm still halfway through Dragon Quest XI and kind of like ran out of steam on that game. So, you know, with the first Dragon Quest game, it was a novelty to me, and now I've been in the Dragon Quest world enough that the aesthetic is not a novelty to me really anymore, and so all that extra story stuff and NPC dialogue, it does bog down the experience for me, and especially when they're just, I feel like, giving me too much direction and too narrow of a path that I have to go down to advance the story. And, you know, anyway, I am optimistic that I'll have enough fun often enough with this game to make it worth completing. And as with the last game, the best fun I have might come near the end of the game or after the campaign. I think that was the case with the first game for me. And I'm willing to keep going to get there because I am enjoying enough along the way. But I am bummed that the decreased creative freedom while advancing the story and the increased dialogue and story elements are keeping me from having the best fun that this game offers me, even more than 10 hours into it. I really just, man, I just play these games to do my trial and error reviews for 5 hours because I'm like, man, if your game doesn't represent itself within the first 5 hours, then I feel like you're doing something wrong, you know, at least if you want my money. And I really don't feel like this game represents what it is and what it can be within the first 5 hours, maybe not within even the first 10 hours. I really felt like the tutorial was going on longer than I wanted it to, and they front-loaded a lot of new mechanics, you know, in this game. So anyway, I'm still having really a great time. Most of the time I'm sitting down and playing it, but it's not like something I'm just like, I am only playing this now until I'm done with it. You know, it's gonna be one of those things where it's like, I'm totally in this. until I'm not, and my mood is like, now I don't want this flavor of ice cream anymore. I'm ready to move on to something that's darker and grimmer and or whatever. So I'm still having a great time, but I do think for my taste, it's a small step back in enjoyment for me compared to the original Dragon Quest builders. As for themes, it did become clear later on in the story, I'll try not to spoil it, why they chose pastor instead of priest for that, character that was kind of like from the evil religion. We find out that his name is Pastor Al. Pastoral, and so they're going along with this kind of agricultural vibe, and so it was just a play on words. That's really the only reason I think they went with pastor instead of priest or something like that. And it does. They certainly do continue with this idea of really kind of nature worship. Not only is this deity like kind of the good version of religion in this game, where the bad version is worship some evil kind of single god out there. I'm not going to say that they're going for some kind of like a comparison with Christianity or not. It's just interesting to observe those parallels. But not only is this tree like kind of dependent on the humans in this game, but small spoiler, it turns out it was made by a human. It ultimately was made by a human. And so it definitely does not have any kind of a transcendent God figure that's really, truly worthy of worship. It's more of a nature worship and like a humanist, naturalist almost kind of vibe going on ultimately that they're kind of spiritualizing maybe. You could speculate as to what real-world religions and philosophies that was inspired by, but no matter what its inspirations, it's definitely, a broken philosophy. But I wouldn't want to, put out there the idea that we as Christians should be anti-nature, or like, and not recognize the beauty of nature and the value of nature. We are actually humans created by God to rule over nature, and not with an iron rod, but as benevolent rulers, and eventually we will be perfected and able to truly rule nature and the creatures in it in a compassionate and caring and responsible way. But in the meantime, I do think that we have some responsibility to steward creation well, to do what we can to care for it well. So anyway, we just don't want to take it to the point of worship and obsession. I do think it's really interesting that despite the fluffy, cartoony aesthetic, they're dealing with these themes of religious persecution. And in here, you do ultimately have like the evil monotheists that are like being crushing and oppressive toward the builders, who would presumably worship the goddess, the spirit of the earth in past games, or maybe it's the deity, maybe the goddess is the deity. I don't know. It's not clear to me at this point. But I feel like, going to the well of evil, monotheistic, organized religion persecuting others again and again and again, at this point, it just struck me as like, yeah, it's cliche, maybe it's part of fantasy, but it's certainly not social commentary anymore. And if it is, then I would want to say, well, hold on. If we're going to, make a social statement about how, the Crusades and the Inquisition were bad, which they were, are we going to say anything about the horrible religious persecution of Christians that's going on right now in other countries? Even countries that we do a lot of business with, like India and China, where people are, not allowed to be Christians, or if they are, then it's got to be this government-approved or society-approved version of Christianity, and there's just social and sometimes governmental persecution. And in other countries, it can be much more intense, in the Middle East. There are other religions. If we're going to say one religion is oppressing another religion, these days Christianity is not the religion that is oppressing and dominating and killing those of other religions. And I'll leave it to you to imagine what religion or religions might be in the habit of doing that these days in other country. I don't want to make too much of a stink out of this, but I do think it's interesting, and if we're going to make some social commentary, anyway, no more about that. But a resource I would recommend is opendoorsUSA.org. We don't see in the news, just because I think that there's, I don't know why we don't see it in the news. I don't want to, try to speculate on the hearts of those that are, creating news programming. But for some reason, we don't see in the news hardly ever the fact that Christians are being persecuted in other countries in really terrible ways. But if you want to be aware of what's going on in other countries by people who are collecting data responsibly, I would recommend OpenDoorsUSA.org. OpenDoorsUSA.org. And it is eye-opening to what is going on in countries that we may not realize, and how they are treating the Christians that, I'm not just talking about the white American Christians that are, embedded in there for whatever reason. I'm talking about the local people that are becoming Christians and how they're being treated and what ends up happening of their lives. OpenDoorsUSA.org. So anyway, that went down a really serious rabbit trail. But is it all that surprising with all this happy, smiley, Dragon Questy type stuff? Ready for a change of mood, I guess. All right, well, that's it. Those are all my thoughts for now. I hope you'll join us soon sometime. What's my closing thing? Over at christiangeekcentral.com. as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. Thanks. Bye-bye. I've created some new tiers for our Patreon. On top of many of our original perks, I've added Discord live events, spoiler chat videos, and more. You can get all the info at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions.